Alors,
Hi, Hubert.
so congratulations for being accepted to all these schools. So what are your plans for the coming months?
Well, the plans for the coming months are essentially to get ready for
Mhm.
the new adventure that I have. I would essentially resign from my current job and move back to Italy for a few months to essentially prepare for my journey ahead to the US, do all the bureaucracy, and look ahead of checking for housing, budgeting, and all those activities that are required as a new student.
Okay. So how did it change your life to be accepted? How did it change your life?
Well,
Did you
there
see
was,
any change already, or no? It's too early.
I would say, I think it's already changed, Uber.
Yeah.
Being accepted to all these amazing universities really is a game changer in my career,
Mhm.
both professionally and I would say personally, because I
Mhm.
think that an MBA from a top business school will enrich me with a network of fantastic alumni and peers,
Mhm.
and at the same time allow me to develop those leadership skills and hone those sort of soft skills that are required in today's global business world. And I would say that the opportunity of moving to the US and work in the US for at least in the medium and long term is an opportunity that is once in a lifetime, I would say, Hubert. So I'm really excited to be accepted to these universities.
Okay. So let me take out this WhatsApp because it interferes. Alors, basically, to which universities have you been accepted finally? Because we mentioned, I wrote an article, a post about you, but tell
Mhm.
me the universities where you have been accepted.
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So I was accepted at three US universities and one European university. So I was accepted at NYU Stern School of Business,
Hmm?
Berkeley Art School of Business, and Chicago Booth School of Business of the University of Chicago. And I was also accepted at INSEAD
Hmm?
Business School in France. And I'm also waiting from two other schools, Hubert. So I'm waiting response from MIT, Sloan School of Business, as well as Columbia School of Business. So in total, I would say working with MBA Center allow me to get into probably six top business school in the world.
Yeah, so we have been accepted to four top 15. Huh?
Yes.
No, so tell me, so what according to you, why did they take you?
I think that's that's a question that is very complex, but I'll try to answer per step. First of all, I think professionally, I can bring a lot of insights, especially in the healthcare and consulting world, as well as the technology world.
Hmm?
Because with my prior experience, I was exposed to different roles in different companies across US and Europe. And being at the point of my career of having more than 4 years of experience will allow me to bring professional insights to my peers who are interested in pursuing a career in my same field, and I can also collaborate and being part of enriching discussions in classes and in the campus. So I think that's probably number one. The second reason is that I'm European and I come from a specific background, which is a very quantitative background. I have a bachelor's in mathematics and physics, and therefore this puts me with a specific toolkit in the academia. I also honed my quantitative skills with a master's in data science, and therefore I have quite an interesting profile considering where the world is going with with transformative technologies such as Gen AI and specific like fintech and healthtech world. So I believe that by bringing this specific background that I have, I'm also able to enrich the class and my peers. And lastly, working with MBA Center, I was able to really get the best out of my story both in terms of essays and quality of the application, as well as the ability of honing the GMAT and the GRE, in my case, test. And I think those two components really helped me to get the best out of the application and really showcase the admission committee how important and how unique my profile is compared to a wealth of applicants.
Yeah. So basically, yes, being your coach, I can tell that according to me, the first thing was academic, academic and intellectual. You have shown in your GRE intellectual abilities, and academically you have studied mathematics and you have studied at SAD. So basically, you have that's something very important, by the way, that I advise to people is that it's good to have studied also outside your own country. Okay, you also live in a different country, so that's something that they appreciate. The fact that you have also switched from mathematics, data science, and now business, that's something it makes sense. Okay, there's a rationale behind that. So for the fact that you're very international, you're Italian, you have studied in Spain, you speak Spanish.
Yes, I speak Spanish. Yes.
Like you speak English, or same level, or you speak Spanish as well as English? No, you speak English a bit better, probably. No.
Yes, because I've been in London for the past 4 years.
Yeah.
And therefore
you speak pretty well. Yeah, maybe C1. So you're international. Italy, Spain, and the UK. To unfold your career professionally, it may be somehow sort of weakness, and it does not make you stand out because there are many consultants like you. Okay, and I think that you have been able to express a story that makes it stand out, because it's very difficult to be perfect in at every stage. So I would say that basically your current job may be at the same time does not make you stand out because there are many consultants. Okay, but the fact that you have been able to sell your story, that you have been able to spend what you want to do, is also very important. So don't forget that, of course, you have your assets, you have also your liabilities, but at the same time, depending on the story that you're going to tell them, they may say that something in your story, his weakness, his liability is not a big deal. You agree?
I agree.
So now I forgot to ask you, because I wanted to ask you, I want to start the interview like I normally start. So can you tell me more about yourself? Okay, who is Davide Calogero?
That's a great question, Hubert. So
2 minutes, maybe 2 minutes, take your time, okay. So that people understand who they are, what they have done. Go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I would say I've been at the intersection of first of all, I've been at the intersection of many things in my life, and I would say that right now I am eager to pursue a professional career in the world of venture capital after a stint as a digital consultant and technology transformation here in London. But I can tell a bit more about my background. So I was born in Italy, in a city nearby Venice called Padova, and I've had the opportunity to develop a unique world perspective by living in London, Barcelona, and New York in the last 6 to 7 years. And that's why, as you mentioned, I speak good Spanish. In fact, after obtaining a bachelor's of mathematics and physics at Padova, I also took a master's in business analytics at SADE in Barcelona. And post that, I worked as a data analyst in a startup in New York City, where I helped the vice president of finance build up the business analytics and intelligence department. And my collaboration with him continues as I help him develop tools for his VC fund. I'm now in London, and I'm part of the digital and technology team for a firm called ZS Associates. And here I worked with leadership to bring the best out of the Gen AI landscape towards large pharmaceutical clients. In my spare time, I would say that I nurture my passion for innovation and education, and that's why I also funded the Data Science Student Club at my previous university at DeSade, as well as collaborated as a teaching assistant for more than 15 courses in digital innovation and data science for MBA and master students still at the time. And in my free time, you can find me coaching clients on Olympic weightlifting and CrossFit, as well as preparing, sort of sharing my Italian heritage to the world, especially here in London.
Okay. So it's everything is good. So we perfectly understand about yourself. So tell me now, you have been accepted to 4 schools: NYU, Berkeley, Chicago, and INSEAD. Which school have you rejected almost immediately? Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
which school are you still hesitating with? Because we said that you are a Chicago graduate. I say that you still hesitate between the two. So tell us about the reasoning process, how you have eliminated NYU, INSEAD,
Mm-hmm.
why you hesitate uh, between Berkeley and Chicago. Tell us.
Yeah, so I would say that first of all the schools that I was able to get in with MBA Center are amazing schools, right? And it was not an easy choice to decline the offer of them. But
But they were
I
all
also
good, huh? They were all good.
they're all
They were all
great.
great
They're
schools.
great, yeah. So I started by by declining INSEAD as the first one because
Why? Wednesday was really the first one that you. By the way, it's me who will be somehow convince you to apply to INSEAD. But why INSEAD is not your? Because maybe we are going to hear things that we don't hear in general. So tell us. Yeah.
well, I would say first of all, INSEAD is a great school. It has lots of alumni and a fantastic brand, especially in Europe and in Middle East and in Southeast Asia. But the problem with INSEAD is that for me, that I want to move long term to the US, it doesn't really help me with my goal. And at the same time, being in a 10 months program versus 2 years program like other US programs won't help me pivot my career into another industry, which, as I mentioned, is venture capital and entrepreneurship. So all in all, it wasn't an easy choice because the opportunity cost of INSEAD is 1 year extra work, easier. But given also the current market situation, probably it's been a tough but a somehow uh, forced choice to decline INSEAD.
Okay.
With respect to
Then,
the other schools, I would say that I also um, rejected NYU Stern after much deliberation, even though it's a great school. It's in New York. It's a fantastic program. But for my career aspirations, it doesn't really help me pivot into certain fields. Or better, there are better schools that will help me pivot into certain industries. And especially for having the NYU Stern, I know it's a school very strong in finance,
mhm.
especially in investment banking. Um, but I had two better opportunities on my table that actually were much more interesting. So right now, given that I'm still waiting answer for a couple of schools, as I mentioned earlier, the two schools that I have on the table are University of Chicago Booth School of Business and Berkeley Haas School of Business. Now, the why am I still debating with myself? Because essentially, Berkeley has given me a very abundant scholarship opportunity, whereas Chicago Booth has not. And
Mhm.
therefore, I'm sort of weighing the the opportunity of getting into a top five to four program, like the University of Chicago Booth School of Business, and um, a more regional local program in California, like the Berkeley one. And how am I making this decision? I'm talking with a lot of people who have been in these schools,
Mhm.
both from Berkeley and Booth, as well as current students, to understand which option is the best for me. Um, that's all, Hubert. That's what I would say.
Yes, and also the fact that probably you will not hesitate if you have not received a $90,000 scholarship. Huh?
Yes.
That makes the choice difficult. Have you received some type of scholarship from Chicago? Are you expecting one?
Well, I was expecting one, and I'm still expecting one. So I think that's something that will probably help me help drive my choice to Chicago if Chicago will give me a scholarship,
Yeah.
and we will see.
So let me take notes for the thing. Alors, according to you, so we all understand that Chicago is the number one choice. By the way, it's an M7. Huh? So what do you like so much at Chicago? You know that you want to work in the US. You want to make a career switch in finance. So what do you find so interesting with Chicago?
Well, I would say Chicago has at least three
Opinion.
important elements for choice.
Hmm?
First of all, is the third strongest uh, city in the US by GDP. It's probably it's one of the best. It's probably the best. So it's the best city in terms of architecture in the U.S. and it's a hub of entrepreneurship and at the same time financial hub in New York. Probably the second
Hmm?
one after New York City as a financial hub. And moreover, Chicago Booth will has a important um, important presence in the US, not just in Midwest, but across both East Coast and West Coast. In fact, there's 30% of people end up in New York, 20% in San Francisco, and just 30% remains in Midwest and Chicago. Whereas the remaining 20% are scattered across the US and in the rest of the world, which makes Chicago Booth a um, very easy choice if you want to relocate to New York City or to San Francisco and keep the choice for later. I would say that Chicago has also is very well connected. Being in the middle of the US allows you to get into both East Coast and West Coast easily. And if we want to sort of switch gears and think about the Berkeley opportunity, well, Berkeley is more like regional recruiting. It's
Hmm?
very tough for California, especially San Francisco. And going to Berkeley will meaning that I will have a more sort of local presence in Silicon Valley, because as you know, Berkeley is just 40 minutes by train to Silicon Valley, which allows me to connect with big tech companies in Silicon Valley very easily.
Okay. Okay. That's the thing because, basically, so you mentioned that you want to work. You have plans. So what are your plans, short term, mid term, long term, Davide?
So there's there are different plans, I would
Hmm?
say. Number one is my first choice is to pivot into venture capital in as a plan A, and I'm thinking of um, I'll try to join a renowned fund in venture capital.
Hmm?
And after a few years, after having been promoted and sort of climbing the ladder of the VC world, I want to um, fund my own venture capital fund to provide entrepreneurs the opportunity to nurture their ideas free of mind. And my plan B is to get back to consulting, join a management consulting firm in digital practice where I will be able to grow and eventually probably become an entrepreneur. And the plan C, if also plan A and plan B don't work, is to um, sort of get back to my family business because I have a family business in Italy, and I would also leverage the contacts that I would get through an MBA to expand the business internationally and nurture um, the brand of the company.
Yeah. So that's the thing. So you have different projects. Anyway,
Hmm.
for time being, going to America, working in finance, in VC, and you see from there. Alors, tell me, we have taken quite a lot of time from June to let's say late March. Okay. So can you imagine what it is, this odyssey of applying to a top MBAs? What is it? How does it work? The do's, the don'ts? Yeah. Tell me.
Hmm. So there's I would say there's probably three important steps
Hmm?
that one must take. So the first step is to clear the standardized test. Now, some people will be able to get with a low score, but that's a very
Hmm?
minor percentage of people. Um, if you want to land into one top business school, you need to get probably at least above the average or on par with the average of the schools.
Close to
And
the
in this
average,
case,
especially when you're European, you can be slightly below the average. You see, huh? Slightly
mhm,
below maybe, but of course, if you're Indian, you have to be much above. Yeah. You have to be close to the average in a way or another. I agree with you. Sorry to
exactly.
interrupt you.
So this way, like getting getting to know MBA Center and working with Dr. Hubert allowed me to
Hmm?
push my boundaries and get a fantastic score on the GRE, which allowed me to position myself higher, much higher than the average for these top programs. And this is sort of part one. And for that, depending on each one's abilities, I would say at least 4 or 5 months, because I expect people to take more than one attempt on the test. Sometimes because they can push a bit more. The average is probably 2 to 3 attempts for the test, and that obviously requires you to really put a lot of work. And in this case, working, for example, with Dr. Hubert was very instrumental in ensuring my success. This is one part. The second part is on the bulk of the application, which is the essay part. And in this case, working with MBA Center allowed me to really present myself in the best possible way, and that probably request at least a couple of months, because there's a lot of back and forth in terms of first draft, second draft, third draft, and then final review. There's a lot of this. It's like a marathon. It's like a process, and you need to really spend um, a lot of time in polishing and really get the best out of each essay, because that will make you stand out. And I'd say the third part is the probably the most annoying one, which is essentially filling out the application and making sure that your recommenders are aligned with your career path. Now, most of the times, you need to tell the recommenders well ahead before the deadline that you plan to that you plan to apply to business school, because it normally takes them a lot of time to write a recommendation letter for you. Most programs request two recommendation letters. Some request just one, like for example Columbia or MIT.
Hmm?
Um, but in general, two recommendation letters are requested. And my recommendation is to get well ahead of time to be able to make sure that they send a recommendation letter um, on time. And also working with Dr. Uber will allow you to get the best of the bullet points that you should have them highlight for you in the recommendation letter. So to summarize, the first one is the standardized test, and that is probably 2, 3, 4 months, depending on each one's ability. Then a couple of months for the essays, and then probably again 1 or 2 months for the overall application and recommendation letters. Obviously, these things don't need to go sequentially, but they can be taken up in parallel. But my suggestion is to start early and not just find yourself in the last couple of months. Otherwise, there's a risk that you will need to push your application submission to the next round, which is still okay, I would say, but less chance to get a scholarship, for example, if you're aiming one, or a less competitive pool, but at the same time, much broader pool of students, of applicants, and also I would say um, like lesser odds of getting admitted if someone with the same profile has already been accepted to round one.
Okay, very good. So yes, I agree with you. So if you don't have a good GMAT or a good GRE, it's pointless. By the way, we have many students who stop or would change their strategy or their approach or their target school because they don't get the GMAT. So I want to follow, of course, the application and basically understand the strengths and weaknesses of your profile and see how we can work on it. At the end, you have a jury that will read your application and you have to convince them, you know. And finally, the last one, interviews. We said that there's even a fourth round, is to be able to negotiate the financing, because that's something we took quite at length, you and me, and we know that's that's an issue today.
Hmm.
We have people apply to schools. They believe that everything will be possible, that we have to send checks, and it's another story starting. We agree, and you may
Hmm.
reconsider some programs. That's why some people will then finally choose a one-year program. The people will take a program for which they have received a scholarship. That's something that I see a lot in India. People will favor scholarship, okay? Except the outstanding students, the three-well students from IT, the IT students, which is like sort of pre-technical um, in India. Usually they come from families where they are ready to make huge debts if they have a good program without scholarship. Yes, there are four rounds. These four rounds are important, and after that there will be a fifth round, which is finding the right job. Okay. Now you told me
Yeah.
that you want to go in America. So what do you expect? Why to America? What crimes do you see in staying there and finding a job? What is what has been
Well,
the feedback so far?
well, it's obviously hard because being an international makes it harder. Um, so again, my suggestion would be to be very flexible in the opportunities ahead, and if necessary, don't stick to a plan, but try to be as as malleable as possible, plastic in the choice of what you're gonna do. Obviously, if you say, like my case, I want to go to venture capital eventually, there's not just way to go into venture capital. Sure, of course, business school is one of them, and schools like Booth, Harvard, Wharton, Stanford will allow you to pivot into venture capital if you really want to. But if that doesn't work for any number of reasons, there are multiple paths that allow you to pursue your dream, even if, for example, venture capital will take 2 extra years to pursue your MBA. So my suggestion would be to really be open-minded and try to get the best of the experience and make sure that you have always a plan B for anything that you want to pursue so that you're not sort of putting all your eggs in one basket.
Hmm.
Um, that's my biggest suggestion for those who want to take a leap to a new country, new region.
So that's why uh, that's what you have decided to do, of course. Yeah. So basically. Yeah, anyway, the US is the best country if you want to do a career in finance. Nobody can beat the US, and I'm sure that you will work. You will work well. Um, so, is there a question, because you're now you're the expert, that you would like to answer and I did not ask you? I'm sure that there's one.
That's a tough question, I would say. Um, I think it depends, Hubert, on the on the program, because there are some program that they might be interested in knowing more about you and ask you the specific question. But in general, I think this is a question that most of the time is not asked. And essentially the question is very personal. And I would say the question is, what's your heritage, right? What's your um, what makes you who you are, and what is the most important thing that you care about? That's why what basically what is the engine that really motivates you on your actions? Like, and this is obviously
Hmm.
part of it is personal, and part of it comes from your family background. There's multiple reasons, and I feel like that only Stanford really asks you for that question, as far as I
Hmm.
remember. Some schools are interested in your background, but I think that knowing your motivation, what really pushes you to an MBA, and what makes you who you are at this point of life is a very important question. Now, many times this question comes out in the interview, right? If you have a good bond with the interviewer, if you're interested in, if the interviewer was interested in you, definitely they're going to ask you. For example, the said interview, I was asked this question, and it was really pleasant conversation. But um, other times it's just a very more like a more standard interview, which I think is a lost opportunity for the school to get to know you better and for you to really tell them who you are. So I think that's probably the most important question for me.
Okay. I guess I did not ask you. Maybe that's another question. So,
Mhm.
what about the interviews? Are they all the same? Uh,
No, no, definitely
what about
not.
the question that you got? How did you feel when you got them? So, like many Italians, I've noticed that my Italian students are very bright. They feel very comfortable with the interview. I'm sure. Remember, it was the same for you. So, what is it like to have an interview at NYU, Berkeley, INSEAD, or Chicago's?
Well, first of all, obviously the interview is one data point of the whole process, and uh, it's hard to say how much important it is overall, because if the school already wants you, it's not a bad interview that makes a difference.
Mm,
Now, a good interview doesn't really hurt. A good interview actually will help you get a scholarship, for example. And a great interview might help you even get you even a higher scholarship, or make it or break it for a sort of edge case for admission.
mm,
And I was fortunate to that I work with the MBA Center to really get the best out of the interview preparation. To answer your question, Uber, it's hard to define like a specific interview style, because every school is different, and it also depends, it goes really down to the specific interviewer, because there might be certain interviewers who are more personal, certain who are more standard, and that usually happens many times with asks when schools ask alumni to conduct interviews. And you never know. I mean, I'm sure that there are certain greets that alumni need to fill out for the interview, but how they fill out, that's a different story. My suggestion would be to work with an expert like Dr. Hubert to really get strong on a 10, 15 max questions that go around your background, your career aspirations, your short-term, long-term goals, some uh, questions on the strengths and weaknesses, and specific questions on the some leadership instances, management instances, a time when you failed, time when you overcome a difficulty, time when you led a team, etc., etc. Those behavioral questions are super important, and as you get really good at and each of them, and you have one or two great examples where you can really deep into them, that's the most important thing. The second part is obviously regarding the school. You need to have a clear plan of what you're going to do in the school, why you chose the school, and especially what is really um, important, what is really that you love about the school. So say knowing specific professors and courses, getting to know alumni, students, current faculty is super important to make a great impression and really make you shine and convince them that you really made your research and are really interested and convinced of getting a place in their school. And lastly, I would say not to forget the importance of having questions for them. At least three questions for the interviewer is mandatory if you want to really showcase that you would contribute to the school.
okay. So I agree with you that it's and in the do's and don'ts. In the do's, it's to be in contact with schools. But what people be by to be in contact with schools, they will just attend a forum, and they will just attend a forum or visit the school, okay, which is already better. But what they forget to do is that they should develop their fan their database, their fan support. Okay, and I was talking to one of my students who got a Jew, and it was not easy for him. Obviously, that's what he told me, and he had internal recommendation from students. So it seems that having internal recommendation it's important. I would say that is probably the most important thing in the collaboration with the school, and of course attending fairs and visiting the school, knowing the recommenders, knowing the outcome is important, but internal recommendation is really the most important. And try to get three, four. Don't limit yourself to one. It's very important to be recommended internally. Okay, and especially by people who are not from your nationality. So, for instance, if you're Indian, don't be recommended by other Indians. If you're French, by other French. Show them that you can develop your network. Okay. So, Davide, thank you very much for being with us today. Your interview will be online soon. It was nice as usual to talk to you, and see you soon in London. Bye bye,
Thank
Davide.
you. Thank you, Bert.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.